The Secret of Life by Chuang. Those who understand the conditions of life devote no attention to things which life cannot accomplish. Those who understand the conditions of destiny devote no attention to things over which knowledge has no control. For the due nourishment of our physical frames, certain things are needful. Yet where such things abound, the physical frame is not always nourished. For the preservation of life it is necessary that there should be no abandonment of a physical frame. Yet where the physical frame is not abandoned, life does not always remain. Life comes and cannot be declined. It goes and cannot be stopped. But alas, the world thinks that to nourish the frame is enough to keep life, and if indeed it is not enough, what then is the world to do? Although not enough, it must still be done. It cannot be neglected, for if one is to neglect the physical frame, better far to retire at once from the world. By renouncing the world, one gets rid of the cares of the world. The result is a natural level which is equivalent to a rebirth, and he who is reborn is near. But what inducement is there to renounce the affairs of man, to become indifferent to life? In the first case, the physical body suffers no wear and tear. In the second, the vitality is left unharmed, and he whose physical frame is perfect, and whose vitality is in its original purity, he is one with God. Heaven and earth are the father and mother of all things. When they unite, the result is shape. When they disperse, the original condition is renewed. But if body and vitality are both perfect, this state is called fit for translation. Such perfection of vitality goes back to the minister of God. Li Tzu asked Kuan Yin, saying, "The perfect man can walk through solid bodies without obstruction. He can pass through fire without being burned. He can scale the highest heights without fear. How does he bring himself to this? It is because he is in the condition of absolute purity," replied Kuan Yin. "It is not cunning which enables him to dare such feats. Be seated, and I will tell you. All that has form, sound, and color may be classed under a head thing. Man differs so much from the rest, and stands at the head of all things, simply because the latter are but what they appear and nothing more. But man can attain no formlessness and vanquish death, and with that which is in possession of the eternal, how can mere things compare? Man may rest in the eternal fitness. He may abide in the everlasting, and roam from the beginning to the end of all creation. He may bring his nature to a condition of one. He may nourish his strength. He may harmonize his virtue, and so put himself into partnership with God. Then, when his divinity is thus assured, and his spirit closed in on all sides, how can anything find a passage within? A drunken man who falls out of a cart, though he may suffer, does not die. His bones are the same as other people's, but he meets his accident in a different way. His spirit is in a condition of security. He is not conscious of riding in the cart, neither is he conscious of falling out of it. Ideas of life, death, fear, etc. cannot penetrate his breast, and so he does not suffer from contact with objective existences. And if such security is to be got from wine, how much more is to be got from God? It is in God that the sage seeks his refuge, and so he is free from harm. An avenger does not snap in twain the murderous weapon, neither does the most spiteful man carry his resentment to a tile which may have hit him on the head, and by the extension of this principle, the empire would be at peace. No more confusion of war, no more punishment of death. Do not develop your artificial intelligence, but develop that intelligence which is from God. From the latter results virtue, from the former cunning, and those who do not shrink from the natural nor wallow in the artificial, they are near to perfection. When Confucius was on his way to the Shu state, he came to a forest where he saw a hunchback catching cicadas as though with his hand. "How clever you are," cried Confucius. "Have you any way of doing this?" "I have a way," replied the hunchback. "In the 5th and 6th moons I practice balancing two balls on one top of the other." If they do not fall, I do not miss many cards. When I can balance 3 balls, I only miss 1 in 10, and when 5, then it is as though I caught the cards with my hand. My body is as motionless as the stump of a tree. My arms like dead branches. Heaven and earth and all creation may be around me, but I am conscious only of my cicada's wings. How should I not succeed? Confucius looked around at his disciples and said, "Singleness of purpose induces concentration of the faculties. Of such is the success of this hunchback." Yen Yuan said to Confucius, "When I crossed over the Shangshan rapid, the boatman managed his craft with marvelous skill. I asked him if handling a boat could be learned. 'It can,' replied he. 'The way of those who know how to keep you afloat is more like sinking you. They row as if a boat wasn't there.' I inquired what this meant, but he would not tell me. May I ask its signification?" "It means," answered Confucius, "that such a man is oblivious of the water around him. He regards the rapid as though dry land. He looks upon an upset as an ordinary cart accident. And if a man can but be impervious to capsizing and accidents in general, whither should he not be able comfortably to go? A man who plays for counters will play well. If he stakes his girdle, he will be nervous. If yellow gold, he will lose his wits. His skill is the same in each case, but he is distracted by the value of his stake. And everyone who attaches importance to the external becomes internally without resource." Tian Kai-shi had an audience of Duke Wei of Zhou. The Duke asked him, saying, "I have heard that Zhu Xian is studying the art of life. As you are a companion of his, pray tell me anything you know about it." "I do but ply the broom at his outer gate," replied Tian Kai-shi. "What should I know about my master's researches?" "Don't be so modest," said the Duke. "I am very anxious to hear about it." "Well," replied Tian, "I have heard my master say that keeping life is like keeping a flock of sheep. You look out for the laggards and whip them up." "What does that mean?" asked the Duke. "In the state of Lu," said Tian, "there was a man named Shan Pao. He lived on the mountains and drank water. All worldly interests he had put aside, and at the age of 70 his complexion was like that of a child. Unluckily, he one day fell in with a hungry tiger who killed and ate him. There was also a man named Chang Yi, who frequented the houses of rich and poor alike. At the age of 40 he was attacked by some internal disease and died. Shan Pao took care of his inner self, and the tiger ate his external man. Chang Yi took care of himself externally, but diseases attacked him internally. These two individuals both omitted to whip up the laggards." Confucius said, "Neither affecting obscurity nor courting prominence, but unconsciously occupying the happy mean. He who can attain to these three will enjoy a surpassing fame. In dangerous parts, where one wayfarer out of 10 meets his death, fathers and sons and brothers will counsel each other not to travel without a sufficient escort. Is not this wisdom? And where men are also greatly in danger, in the lists of passion, in the banquet hour, not to warn them is error indeed." The Grand Augur, in his ceremonial robes, approached the shambles and thus addressed the pigs: "How can you object to die? I shall fatten you for 3 months. I should discipline myself for 10 days and fast for 3. I should strew fine grass and place your body upon a carved sacrificial dish. Does not this satisfy you?" Then, speaking from the pig's point of view, he continued, "It is better perhaps after all to live on bran and escape the shambles. But then," added he, speaking from his own point of view, "to enjoy honor when alive one would readily die on a war shield or in the headman's basket." So he rejected the pig's point of view and adopted his own point of view. In what sense, then, was he different from the pigs? When Duke Huan was out hunting with Quan Chung as his charioteer, he saw a boogie. Catching hold of Quan Chuang's hand, he asked him, saying, "What do you see?" "I see nothing," replied Quan Chung. But when the Duke got home he became delirious, and for many days was unable to go out. There came a certain Huang Tzu Kao Gao of a Chi state and said, "Your Highness is self-injured. How could a boogie injure you? When the vital strength is dissipated in anger and is not renewed, there's a deficiency. When its tendency is in one direction upwards, the result is to incline man to wrath. When its tendency is in one direction downwards, the result is a loss of memory. When it remains stagnant in the middle of a body, the result is disease." "Very well," said the Duke, "but are there such things as boogies?" "There are," replied Huang. "There is the mud spirit Li, the fire spirit Kao, Le Ting, the spirit of a dustbin, Peyo and Wa Lung, spirits of the northeast, Yi Yang of the northwest, Wang Xiang of the water, the Xian of the hills, the Kui of the mountains, the Peng Huang of the moor, the Wei I of the marsh." "And what may the Wei I be like?" asked the Duke. "The Wei I," replied Huang, "is as broad as a cartwheel and as long as a shaft. It wears purple clothes and a red cap. It is a sentient being, and whenever it hears the rumble of thunder, it stands up in a respectful attitude. Those who see this boogie are like to be chieftains among men." The Duke laughed exultingly and said, "The very one I saw." Thereupon he dressed himself and set up, and ere the day had closed, without knowing it, his sickness had left him. Chi Xiang Tzu was training fighting cocks for the prince. At the end of 10 days the latter asked if they were ready. "Not yet," replied Chi. "They are in the stage of seeking fiercely for a foe." Again 10 days elapsed, and the prince made a further inquiry. "Not yet," replied Chi. "They are still excited by the sounds and shadows of other cocks." 10 days more, and the prince asked again. "Not yet," answered Chi. "The sight of an enemy is still enough to excite them to rage." But after another 10 days, when the prince again inquired, she said, "They will do. Other cocks may crow, but they will take no notice. To look at them, one might say they were of wood. The virtue is complete. Strange cocks will not dare meet them, but will run." Confucius was looking at the cataract at Lüliang. It fell from a height of 30 yen, and its foam reached 40 li away. No scaly, finny creature could enter therein. Yet Confucius saw an old man go in, and thinking that he was suffering from some trouble and desirous of ending his life, bade the disciple run along the side to try and save him. The old man emerged about 100 paces off, and the flowing hair went caroling along the bank. Confucius followed him and said, "I had thought, sir, you were a spirit, but now I see you are a man. Kindly tell me, is there any way to deal thus with water?" "No," replied the old man, "I have no way. There was my original condition to begin with, then habit growing into nature, and lastly, acquaintances in destiny. Plunging in with the whirl, I come out with the swirl. I accommodate myself to the water, not the water to me, and so I am able to deal with it after this fashion." "What do you mean," inquired Confucius, "by your original condition to begin with, habit growing into nature, and acquaintances in destiny?" "I was born," replied the old man, "upon dry land, and accommodated myself to dry land. That was my original condition. Growing up on the water, I accommodated myself to water. That was what I meant by nature. And doing as I did without being conscious of any effort so to do. That was what I meant by destiny." Xing, the chief carpenter, was carving wood into a stand for hanging musical instruments. When finished, the work appeared to those who saw it as though of supernal execution, and the Prince of Lu asked him, saying, "What mystery is there in your art?" "No mystery, your Highness," replied Xing, "and yet there is something. When I am about to make such a stand, I guard against any diminution of my vital powers. I first reduce my mind to absolute quintessence. 3 days in this condition, and I become oblivious of any reward to be gained. 5 days, and I become oblivious of any fame to be acquired. 7 days, and I become unconscious of my forelimbs and my physical frame. When, with no thought of a court present to my mind, My skill becomes concentrated and all disturbing elements from without are gone. I enter some mountain forest. I search for a suitable tree. It contains the form required, which is afterwards elaborated. I see the stand in my mind's eye and then set to work. Otherwise, there is nothing. I bring my own natural capacity into relation with that of the wood. What was suspected to be of supernal execution in my work was due solely to this. Tung Ye-shi exhibited his charioteering skill before Duke Chuang. Backwards and forwards he drove in lines which might have been ruled, sweeping round at each end in curves which might have been described by compasses. The Duke, however, said that this was nothing more than weaving, and bidding him drive round and round 100 times returned home. Yen Ho came upon him and then went in and said to the Duke, "These horses are on the point of breaking down." The Duke remained silent, making no reply, and in a short time it was announced that the horses had actually broken down and that she had gone away. "How could you tell this?" said the Duke to Yen Ho. "Because," replied the latter, "she was trying to make his horses perform a task to which they were unequal. Therefore I said they would break down." Shui, the artisan, could draw circles with his hand better than with compasses. His fingers seemed to accommodate themselves so naturally to the thing he was working at that it was unnecessary to fix his attention. His mental faculties thus remained one and suffered no hindrance. To be conscious of one's feet implies that the shoes are easy. To be unconscious of the waist implies that the girdle is easy. The intelligence being unconscious of positive negative implies that the heart is at ease. No modifications within, no yielding to influences without. This is ease under all conditions. And he who, beginning with ease, is never not at ease, is unconscious of ease. A certain Sun Xiu went to the house of Pian Xing Tzu, and complained, saying, "In peace I am not considered wanting in propriety, in times of trouble I am not considered wanting in courage. Let my corps fail, and officially I am not a success. From my village an outcast, I am an outlaw for my state. How have I offended against God that he should visit me with such a fate?" "Have you not heard," replied Pian Tzu, "how the perfect man conducts himself? He is oblivious of his physical organization. He is beyond the reach of sight and hearing. He moves outside the limits of this dusty world, rambling transcendently in the domain of no affairs. This is called acting, but not from self-confidence, influencing, but not from authority. But you make a show of your knowledge in order to startle fools. You cultivate yourself in contrast to the degradation of others, and you blast along as though the sun and moon were under your arms. Whereas that you have a whole body and a whole skin, you have not perished in mid-career, dumb, blind, or halt, but actually hold a place among men. This ought to be enough for you. Why rail at God? Begone." Sun Xiu went away and Pian Tzu went in and sat down. Shortly afterwards he looked up to heaven and sighed, whereupon the disciple asked him what was the matter. "When Xiu was here just now," answered Pian Tzu, "I spoke to him of the virtue of a perfect man. I fear lest he be startled and so driven on to doubt." "No, sir," answered the disciple. "If he was right and you were wrong, wrong will never drive a right into doubt. If, on the other hand, he was wrong and you were right, he brought his doubt with him and you are not responsible." "Not so," said Pian Tzu. "Of old, when a bird alighted outside the capital of Lu, the prince was delighted, and killed an ox to feed it, and had the Xiu Shao played to entertain it. The bird, however, was timid and dazed, and dared not to eat or drink. This was treating the bird like oneself. But to treat a bird as a bird would treat a bird, you must put it to roost in a deep forest, let it swim in a river or lake, and feed it its ease on the plain. Now Sun Xiu is a man of small understanding, and for me to speak to him of a perfect man is like setting a mouse to ride in a couch, or a band of music to play to a quail. How should he not be startled?